allaccess.com.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
New on Curiosity Stream.
From time to time, we have collisions between asteroids and the Earth.
We track them. We study them. We hope the big one never comes. Don't look up. It's asteroid rush. And alligators. They rarely get sick. They even outlasted the dinosaurs. Could they hold the secret to human longevity?
Their blood could have antibacterial applications.
Wade into the investigation on immortal alligators. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News Radio 690, KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk, Matt Olson already greeting us. A good afternoon. Hello to you as well. If you want to chime in over there, that's one of the better ways to do so throughout the program here, because, well, you can do things like that. And the conversation often takes on its own tone and tenor. See if the Skeptic Squad is out today. I have a sneaking suspicion they may be, as we talk about the people who comment and make interesting points here, and the Thunderdome comments that develops here. Also dropping those likes. We do appreciate Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Matt Olson, and Flaco Jimenez. We got a lot to get to here today. Of course, as was unfortunately expectable, more updates and very unfortunately more deaths being announced in the aftermath of that human smuggling seriously gone wrong situation in San Antonio. But more specifically today, what was somewhat more anticipated, we even talked about it yesterday, you may recall, some more updates coming out from the state level. Governor Greg Abbott still giving the business to the Biden administration over this and announcing new measures, what those are so far and what that might mean here. Matt Olson with the Skeptic Squad hashtag, absolutely. So that's definitely one major thing going on here today. And also related to that, more regional warnings about stash houses, extortion efforts, etc., that definitely play into this issue. Also, some more evaluations coming out in a continuing conversation about some serious paychecks coming from public entities, talking specifically here about the city and the evaluations that have now been released of the yearly variety for the city manager and city attorney, and what that might mean for their compensation levels going forward, as well as some definitely going to be delving further into the UMC situation. Finally got a Stephanie in the studio a little bit earlier today. We had an in-depth conversation. Finally had to break it up into two segments. We'll be talking with her about what is going on, the status of the votes, and what could be coming next with that entire idea about the UMC expansion, certificates of obligation. Could there be a possibility of it going on to a ballot? We'll talk all about that and a whole lot more. Plus, teacher things, education in the borderland also on the mind, as there are both Texas, local, and New Mexico things going on in that whole sphere. So jam-packed show again for you here today. I don't feel like we haven't said that in a while, or at least it hasn't applied in a while, even if we don't say it out loud, because sometimes I almost take it as rote these days that, yeah, there's going to be a lot, and this is certainly no exception here. So let's dive right into some of those situations. Again, 53 now dead after that abandoned trailer discovered in the outskirts of San Antonio due to heat exhaustion. And Yeah, the details on this, depending on how much you can bear, is pretty graphic. Among other things, 37 of the victims have now been identified, also working with the consulates of Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador to identify the rest of the victims. A pretty pertinent question was actually brought up yesterday. I think it was John Brazelton who mentioned the idea of why bother with this? Why go through this route if, I mean, I think it gets a little bit of hyperbole sometimes, but as much as, the asylum process and that, if that is truly what is still being focused on and even promoted by the cartels, why bother with that? And, well, one of the questions has actually kind of been answered out of our local area with the El Paso office of the FBI, raising concerns about influx of stash houses and kidnap for ransom cases, also writ larger as extortion cases in our area. You can find that article over from our news partners at KFOX 14. That's essentially, we've been talking a little bit about the potential for stash houses for a minute as it is, as some have been discovered in the area. We also, if you may recall, had the child smuggling of about 70 plus individuals rescued from that regionally recently as well. So now what the FBI is talking about in conjunction with ICE and other federal agencies, to quote directly from him here, FBI El Paso Special Agent in Charge Jeffrey Downey saying that, quote, we have seen a number of individuals that have been paid for someone to bring them across the border. And once they arrive here in the United States, they're either kept by that same group, the transnational organized crime group, or they're taken by another group and are being held hostage in a location. And that specifically, there was a similar situation reported in Anthony, New Mexico on June 1st when 33-year-old Emigdio Gonzalez Gamboa was arrested for holding a Honduran woman against her will for over a month. So that just gives you a little bit of a window, at least in part, into, well, what some of the background might be. Again, the investigation into the situation, the clone registration of the truck, definitely leading to there being a lot of law enforcement questions that need to be answered in this San Antonio situation. And again, the 53 now that have died as a result of that abandoned trailer, but this giving a little bit of hint of what, well, potentially could be there. We'll be waiting for the full investigation to make any definite determinations, but given this information about how essentially, no, we'll totally bring you here, and you just give us all your money, and then you'll be here. Oh, by the way, you're here now. If you don't give us more money or give your family give us more money, you're not going anywhere. And I almost wonder if this abandoned situation was someone not getting paid, someone not getting money, or almost. And this would be the most sickening one I could imagine, being an example situation. This is what happens if you don't pay us more money. So I have been calling for quite a long time, if I do remember correctly, that focusing on these transnational criminal organizations should be one of the chief things, if not of domestic law enforcement, international diplomacy on this issue. Because there's no one, particularly that, at least I should hope not, would be seeing this as a good thing, a beneficial thing, something that should be allowed to continue in any way, shape, or form. And as, again, more details come out about this, I'm sure we'll get a whole lot more into it. Some of the more comments coming in right now. RJ making a, well, interesting analogy there. Yeah, you can read it for yourself there over on the YouTube, just because I'm worried about the social media implications of it. But John Browson on one of our other subjects today, city manager will be due a $50,000 bonus this year. I'll make more than most world presidents and premiers. I think it's, depending on the calculus, the exact way you think of it, a positive performance evaluation for the city manager, as is written into his, not sure if the new contract is totally in effect yet, but the way it was previously, that if he has a satisfactory evaluation, which he has, exceeds standards is the exact technical term. If you want the full breakdown with all of the points of evaluation and the literal point scores being done here, mild spoiler for you, pulling it out here, that for the Tommy Gonzalez's evaluation as done by city staff and, of course, the city council, his evaluation score of 3.63, with 4 being the highest score, reflects the council's evaluation of his performance as exceeding expectation. The council looks forward to another year working with Mr. Gonzalez, quoting there directly from the evaluation form, which would open him up to a 5% raise as part of that. So I think that puts it around we're in about the 405 range. Some of the numbers and calculations I've been seeing coming out about that, around the like 430 range, $430,000 per year compensation going forth here as well. So that that's a little bit about some of the public funding. And of course, there was also the city attorney, Neiman, who is now receiving an evaluation score of 4.28, with 5 being the highest score there. I don't get why we have different scales and possibilities, but I also didn't write these contracts. And so this is also being reflected as highly effective by the city council's review there as well. Her salary in the $200,000 range, and seeing a commiserate increase there as well. So that's a good segue into our first break of the hour, because coming out of this break, we're going to talk a whole lot more about some of these public expenditures at fund, not from the city side, but rather from the county. We have been checking in on that whole situation involving those UMC certificates of obligation, the possibility of the issuance, and technically the countdown that we're in now, but it's also not quite that simple. Not that anything involving government could ever be totally labeled accurately as simple. We'll break that all down with our news partners at KFOX 14 and to Stephanie Seifert, who has been in a lot of these meetings. Gary De Leon saying, I want to run for city manager. As a finer point, yeah, it's not exactly a elected position. It's a hired position. So who do you know that can get you in with an interview there? And also keep in mind that the current city manager's contract, again, if fully in effect, which I believe it is, need to double check, in through 2029 at this point. Fair point to keep in mind. So we're going to go ahead and take that first break of the hour here right now. Again, if you want to chime in, as we have a few people doing there, good examples being set, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, where you can find us. Opening up those phone lines a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. Have no worry. But in any case, stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere. If you are like me, you may have had a spare thought towards what's going to be on the dinner table for you this evening. If not, you're probably thinking about it now. Sorry, not sorry, but I got to give you a little bit of advice to make up for it then. What I rely on when I really want to take the flavor that I'm looking for in my meals, because it's one thing to have good, wholesome, hearty, nutritious meals. It's another thing for them to taste great without compromising any of those previous ideas. Short story is that you need to get some of the great supply of extra virgin olive oils, balsamic vinegars, and flavored olive oils from our friends over at Enhanced Flavors, because they can really help take it to that next level without either breaking your budget or really upsetting your family, because I like certain flavors that my other rest parts of my family don't like, but we can all agree upon these, and they have such a great variety that you're definitely going to find someone that everyone can love. 40 plus different varieties. You can often find them out in the community, out at farmers markets, particularly lately at the Country Club Farmers Market, which is on 10 to 2 p.m. on Saturdays, but also find them 24/7 online at enhancedflavors.com, where you can get even more than just the, extra things. You can get some basic ingredients, including some great pastas as well. So check them out, their full selection. And with your next order, be sure to hit that code at checkout of EF Radio. That's EF Radio. Get 15% off your next order when you go to enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Paramedics on their way to a crash at I-10 westbound at Red. Thorn to Artcraft with 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 westbound at Sunland Park. A stalled semi is blocking the left shoulder. Border Highway westbound at the Padres Drive on-ramp. A crash there with police on the scene. And an injury accident Wedgwood Drive at McRae. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
While the world bickers over why prices are so high, you drift on over to your happy place. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Bank for Your Tank is brought to you by the El Paso Zoo Society. Take a rock on the wild side. Rock and Roar Music Festival, July 2nd at the El Paso Zoo. 2 music stages, a silent disco, arcade games, and so much more. Get tickets at elpasozoosociety.org.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Here's to the great American settlers. The millions of you who settled for unsatisfying jobs because they pay the bills. Of course, there is something else you could do if you got something to say. Start a podcast with Spreaker from iHeart and unleash your creative freedom. Maybe even earn enough money to one day tell your old boss, hey, I'm no settler, I'm an explorer. Spreaker.com, Spreaker. Hustle on over today.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
An unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm who put his problems to rest.
They got the job done, and life is good.
Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Stop worrying. Make the call now.
Call 800-783-8055. 800-783-8055.
Optima Tax Relief.
For details, visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. If you want to check out those comments and leave your own here, now might be a particularly good time to do so, because we are, of course, being joined right now by Estefania Seifert with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Andrew, of course.
Happy to have you on because, and the reason I mentioned the comments there is that you do look at those and get some of the inspiration and follow-up, more importantly, for some of the investigative reports you do here. So, again, just maybe it's a gentle reminder to the audience.
Yeah, for sure. You all have been sending in a lot of story ideas, and I do read them. I do listen to them if you all call. So please keep that going, because that helps me be able to know what it is that you all want me to look into.
Absolutely. And responsiveness is definitely important here. But I would say that, at least for the last couple of weeks anyway, one of the more important and definitely called for investigations has been into this entire situation involving El Paso County, the El Paso County Hospital District, UMC, and that proposed and now approved initially $345 million certificates of obligation bond. Though, of course, has anything involving that much money, this much different parts of government, it's not that simple.
Right. So just, I guess, a recap real quick for those of you who maybe missed, because it is a bit of a complex situation. So basically what the vote that happened earlier this week means is that UMC can initiate the process of them actually asking the commissioner's court for those certificates of obligation. So what the commissioner's court approved, what the majority of them approved, was for them to post what's called a notice of intent. And so what this does is it sets a timer basically for UMC. Typically, it's a minimum of 45 days, but what was decided at the meeting was that UMC would have 60 days, a minimum of 60 days, to do their outreach to the community to let them know why they want this money, what the expansion would be for, and just to get any stakeholders involved, and just to be able to put that notice out in the newspaper is also one of the requirements. So they have 60 days to do this, which means that we won't be hearing about this again at Commissioner's Court until September 12th. And that's when commissioners could either vote to issue these certificates of obligation in an amount to not exceed $400 million, or they could just give it to the taxpayers as far as that decision. They could give taxpayers a decision of taking it to a vote. So then taxpayers would vote on whether they want UMC to get this money through a general obligation bond, because a general obligation bond does require a voter approval.
And that's one of the more, I think, specific points and an important one to be made here in some ways. And I probably may have described it myself here before understanding this point, is that it almost been described as like a fuse has now been lit and then will end in 60 days and then it will happen. But again, as you're describing, not necessarily the case. It could change the format it's in. Is there a possibility that essentially commissioners can say, we've actually, after this period, decided not to even allow this project to move forward?
See, I don't know. A lot of that is kind of up in the air, just because even the decision that was taken on Monday was not, I guess, one that was initially on the table. It seemed initially like that it was either they approved the intent to post the notice of intent for the certificates of obligation, or they don't. I don't think people were maybe expecting to have that possibility, but that was something that the county judge threw out there as, I want to have options. And he doesn't want to eliminate an option and then come to a point where it's like, yeah, you know what, maybe we should have gone with that other option that we had discussed a few weeks ago or a few months ago, was his take on it. And so during that vote, it was Commissioner Ileana Holguin and Commissioner David Stout who voted against, and Commissioner Carlos Leon, Commissioner Carl Robinson, and the county judge who voted in favor of letting UMC post that notice.
So this, again, the 60-day period is now still or elapsed as we've now been here on Wednesday to this point. So we're looking at, again, September as the point of this. Still been a lot of questions coming in about the project, the scope, and the purpose of it itself. And again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners over at KFOX 14. You want to find out any of her work, particularly some of her more investigative stories, you can find them under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab over on kfoxtv.com. But even on these ones, search up UMC lately, because you've been doing a lot of going to those meetings, including that when we checked on it during this program anyway, while you were still live tweeting about it, that had been going on for 7 hours at that point.
Yeah, so that meeting, that was a pretty long meeting. That item wasn't taken up right away.
Right.
But when it was taken up, it was obviously a very heated, if you will, because there was so much public comment happening. Initially, the judge, before they took a break, the county judge had mentioned that there were 16 people who had signed up for public comment. They each get 5 minutes. So easily more than an hour of public comment of people who were in favor, of people who were against. And what I noticed from public comment was that there were a lot of people who were speaking on behalf of the Renters Association,
right,
on behalf of the Apartment Association, and just their concern of how this will affect people who are already struggling to pay rent, to make ends meet with inflation, and how this would just add on, just more of a burden for them. There was the Hispanic Chamber who also spoke on how this could affect small businesses who are still trying to recover from the pandemic and all the money that they lost. There was someone who had mentioned how this could affect, the military families who are struggling to find housing, because he says, there's not enough housing. There should be more of a focus on an expansion in housing. Why are we focusing on an expansion in, medical? Was what one person during public comment was arguing. And so there was a lot of people who were, not necessarily agreeing with it, but there were also people who felt that this is a huge necessity for El Paso, and just considering how much it's growing, they feel like in order to keep up with the population and the health needs of the community, that they need this expansion, that they need this to be able to keep doctors here in El Paso, to be able to continue that partnership with Texas Tech, where, they have, residencies, they want to keep people here to, be able to offer really good quality doctors in El Paso. And so that I think is what caused so much of the back and forth was, during public comment, there were a lot of feelings, just all over the room of how people felt about this. It was something they're definitely very passionate about.
Very interesting you put there also about the idea of, rentals and apartment associations, because in the background of this has, of course, been the increasing home valuations and property valuations coming out of the Central Appraisal District, often being talked about in terms of homeowners, but there's even some different situations that affect homeowners versus renters. I mean, the whole homestead exemption, certain limitations on how, real actual taxable property value can change every year. None of that applies to renters.
No, it doesn't.
So really, when you're talking about it, all the things that people can do when we were in the period of the evaluations going out, contesting them, again, that another very specific one, not available to renters. So very curious to know a little bit more. What were they saying about his anticipated impacts, except, of course, by the fact that probably going to get more expensive?
That's exactly it. They're just worried that there will be people who will not be able to pay rent, and it's going to lead to homelessness, essentially, is what they're worried about. There was also a member of the union of employees who work at UMC who spoke during public comment, and his concern was that apparently they conducted some sort of, survey amongst employees to see if they were even aware of this proposal. And he says that they weren't. And they are a bit confused as to why didn't they ask the employees, like, what is it that we need? You all work here, so what are the necessities? And so that was their question was, where did you all come up with what it is that we need when you didn't discuss this with the employees? That was another thing that was brought up during public comment. So I know the people who spoke in favor of it, like I said, were painting it in a way where it's like, we're trying to grow as well with the community. We're trying to keep up so that when you all are in an emergency, you can go to a reliable hospital. You don't have to be flown out. They also just want to be a little more competitive, compared to other hospitals. And I think that's the back and forth again, just trying to decide, well, what's the right decision. I think the commissioner's court feel a lot of pressure right now because they say they're getting a lot of calls and emails into their office about how people feel about this.
Would fully expect that to be the case here. I mean, when you're talking about a serious bond of this issue, even if it's a certificate of obligation versus a voter approved bond, a lot goes into it here. So Taylor, we got to take that first break here right now during our interview here. So again, joining us right now is Estefania Cipher, an investigative reporter with KFOX 14. Coming out of this break, we'll talk a little bit more about what exactly are some of the things being talked about with this, because I think the dollar amount's been a lot focused on, not as much as what does the actual proposal encompass, plus how the discussion went and how other factors such as uncompensated care affect this. So stay tuned with more after this break with more here on Talk El Paso, here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Iraca Castillo with your KFOX 14 news update. An El Paso registered nurse has been arrested and accused of threatening police by saying he would give them fentanyl to end their lives if he ever saw them being treated at the hospital. Officers arrested 30-year-old Stephen Olguin on these charges on Monday. He was originally arrested at the Cincinnati Entertainment District on Saturday, and while being taken to the Regional Command Center, he allegedly made the threats against the officers. He was released from custody on Saturday for the initial charge, but rearrested and booked for the offense of obstruction and retaliation on Monday. He's being held at the El Paso County Jail on a $5,000 bond. And the death toll has risen again from Monday's human smuggling tragedy in San Antonio. The Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office confirms the death toll now stands at 53 victims. Meantime, Governor Greg Abbott is now putting in place a new measure where DPS will be stationed at several places along the highway to check for these things. I'm Iraca Castillo with his KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures once again remaining below normal, settling in those lower 90s. We'll see a slight warm up over the next few days, but those temperatures are going to stay below normal well into next week, only in those mid 90s. Essentially every day, including today, we'll have that low threat for a few afternoon thunderstorms. So while you're outside enjoying those cooler temperatures, make sure you're staying weather aware. Visit our website for a full look at your forecast.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks,
presto, you're speaking another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
3 weeks. It's incredible. After 3 weeks, I'm on vacation in Paris, having a conversation in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn. Use Babbel's podcasts or games or videos. You can even join live classes with a language teacher.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
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 Babbel, évidemment. Go to babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply. This report is sponsored by Discover.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Still joined here in studio by Estefania Cipher, investigative reporter with KFOX 14 and our news partners there. Thanks for sticking around with us.
Yes, of course. A lot to digest.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into here, and I feel like every time we get into this, we've only just begun to scratch the surface. So the vote as it came down, again on Monday, was a 3-2 decision to allow for the moving forward of essentially the certificates of obligation process, with some caveats about what the end of the process may look like. There are still some options available, as you were saying, but what were the actual elected officials themselves saying? I mean, again, we had the county judge and 2 commissioners in favor and then 2 commissioners opposed. What did the debate really come down to when they were, giving their votes?
Right. So Commissioner Liana Ulguin said she had gotten a lot of calls into her office of people with concerns. The amount is a very big amount. And so that was also her concern, was that she felt like it should be a decision that the taxpayers make and not a decision that she makes, just because we're talking about a really big amount here that they're asking for. So she said she would not be voting in favor of the notice, because her concern was also that she didn't want to give that perception that voting to approve the notice of intent meant that down the line, these certificates of obligation would be approved. She wants there to be that option of a general obligation bond, which would require voter approval. Commissioner Carlos Leon, he, as well as Commissioner Carl Robinson, both talked about their personal experience with their medical issues and how UMC is the reason that they're alive. They do see the need for more extensive care, and just given their circumstances, Commissioner Leon mentioned he was one of the patients who's had to be flown into UMC. So he was basically touting just the work that they do at the hospital, what a great job they've done, and how, yes, definitely expansion. We need more of these medical services. Same with Commissioner Robinson. He says, why are we wasting time? Someone's life could be on the line. That was mainly their discussion and their arguments as to why they are in favor. They both voted in favor of that. Commissioner David Stout had similar concerns as Commissioner Olguin, saying he also had been getting calls into his office with concerns. And more than anything, he was worried about how quickly this was all moving. We go back to initially, when I previewed this, it was because the UMC board held their meeting where they approved putting the notice of intent on the commissioner's agenda. From there, it was the actual backup wasn't posted until a few hours before. And so there was, I think, a lot of misunderstandings as to what UMC was asking for, exactly how it was going to work, and whether the vote on that day was going to be for this notice or for the actual certificates of obligation. He also, in that meeting, had asked UMC to come back with a communications plan, which in the meeting that they held this week, they did start their presentation with their communications plan. Commissioner Stout said that he was expecting a lot more from it. He said, I wanted more than 2-3 slides on this. I wanted it to be a little more detailed. I still feel like there's a lot that still needs to be done as far as informing the public. And so he voted against. So of course it came down to the county judge who said, again, he thinks options are always a good idea. And that's why he wanted to keep the option of being able to either vote for these certificates of obligation or let the voters decide through general obligation bonds. And so he voted in favor. During public comment, someone had mentioned that certificates of obligation are to be issued during an emergency. And so when it came down to his vote, the county judge brought that up again, saying that he believes this is an emergency. And he voted in favor. And so 3-2 vote. Of course, UMC is now able to post their notice of intent to issue these certificates of obligation. Of course, it's all going to come down to that September 12th meeting when we're going to find out whether the county's going to, the commissioner's court is actually going to vote on it, or if they're going to let the voters decide.
Important details there. Again, joining us right now, Stephanie Cipher, an investigative reporter with our partners over there at KFOX 14. Find out her work, kfoxtv.com. A lot of it under the Investigate tab, the KFOX 14 Investigates tab, but a lot of these, more pressing ones coming up and slightly less investigative, but no less in-depth, I would say, just because it's very kind of day turn kind of stuff and reacting to what's going on right now. You can find then some of the general things. Just search up UMC for most of this stuff here. So that emergency then idea of this is interesting because some of the commentary we've been getting has been, of course, along the lines of, okay, why right now? And also anything being built right now is going to balloon in cost along the way, essentially, because unless you're getting everything all at once, which would be monumental, and are you going to be positive you're not going to need more materials kind of thing, the costs are going to go up. So what if approved, if this were to move forward in whatever format it may, has been a bit on the actual timeline for the project itself, right?
So if approved, I had asked the UMC CEO and President Jacob Cintron how quickly people would be able to see these facilities or this expansion. And he said it would take about 15 months, including the design phase and the construction phase. He's thinking 15 months. Of course, that timeline is now being pushed back because at the time, this was when they thought that commissioners would come to a decision at this week's meeting. So now not only was the timer set for them to be able to do this community outreach. Initially, remember, they had a minimum of 45 days. That's now been extended to 60 days. So now we're talking about this discussion in September. So I think it'd be really tight. I don't really know exactly how it would work as far as if they did decide to let voters decide this through a vote. If it would make it in the November election, it might have to push it to the following election. So that also is something to consider. And that's also something that would push their timeline and cost as well.
So we've talked a lot about the cost, that $345 million figure here, but what actual facilities, capabilities are we talking about that go along to the idea of emergency need, as essentially the county judge was talking about? I know burn centers have been, or the burn capability of treating that has been one major focus as essentially a capability not present in town already, but what else is going into that price tag?
Right. So during the presentation, they detailed a breakdown of the beds that they have at the hospital, at UMC and at El Paso Children's, and how this was before COVID, really, that they started to notice that they are running out of bed space. And so this is specifically for critical care. So ICU beds, they're trying to get more of those. That's part of the expansion. As far as operating rooms, they're trying to add 9 operating rooms, one of which would be able to, will have the capacity to treat a burn victim. There's also, in part of the plan, it details having operating rooms with the capacity of surgeries involving robots. I think that's something that's evolving a lot in the medical field lately. And so they want to stay competitive and, up to date. And so that's one of the operating rooms that they're also looking into. They also had brought up a cancer center. And this doesn't necessarily mean that if you have cancer, you can't be treated in El Paso. It just means that if you have a very rare type of cancer, you may have to go out of town to the Mayo Clinic, to MD Anderson. And so they want to be able to provide specialized cancer services to people. I think those are some of the details that, and in the presentation, which I tweeted out, and it's also linked on the website on this article, it goes into full detail. Like I said, last week, I think you had asked, was this a vague presentation? Was it detailed? I think it was pretty detailed. They have 5 major projects that they want to expand on, and they go into detail of each project. They explain why they think now is the time, as opposed to waiting in a few years when, possibly things are more expensive. But more than anything, I think they're tracking it based off of population and based off of the age of your typical El Pasoan and the health of your typical El Pasoan.
Now, of course, this work they've been doing a lot on is significant and will be ongoing, particularly, maybe not as much in this interim, but as we get to the end of that 60 days, I'm sure we'll focus more on this. But of course, you do have more of your in-depth and investigative reporting coming out today, right?
Yes, I do. So a lot of you had mentioned that you've noticed that when you go to a rec center, a city rec center, or a city pool, that they're closed or the hours are a little, weird or limited. So we took those concerns to the city to find out, what's going on here. Why aren't these open? It's the summer. People want to take advantage of the pools, of the water parks, of a rec center, which many use as cooling centers. And we found out there's obviously still that staffing shortage that the city has been dealing with since really the brunt of the pandemic. And so really the question was, well, what are you doing about it? Because this has been going on for months. So obviously, this is a conversation that has been brought up at City Council. Like, what are the solutions that you all have? What are you all seeing if you've implemented them already? And really just to get the community in the know of why this is happening. So that story is airing tonight.
Okay, so make sure to tune in on that. KFOX 14 News at 9, and also posted up there over at kfoxtv.com. Again, guest right now has been Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with KFOX 14 and our news partners there. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk with us, as we do most Wednesdays, about both the work that you're doing, what's coming up, and what very important things people need to know here today.
Of course, yeah. And you had mentioned real quick, the uncompensated care. I previously did a story on that before this whole vote and item on the agenda. It is under the KFOX Investigates tab. So if anyone wants to go check it out, the title says uncompensated care for UMC, and it details how much money they owe in that regard and how exactly that works.
Absolutely. So again, good reasons to go and check that. Again, kfoxtv.com under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab. So again, Estefania, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely happy to have you on here. And we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do at this point during the show, and particularly after we talk with Estefania. If you want to add your 2 cents, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
All the crashes on I-10 westbound is slowing traffic this afternoon. I-10 westbound after Mesa, a recent crash is blocking the right lane. I-10 westbound at Red, an injury accident with police and medical on the scene. And I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Artcraft, it's about a 15-minute delay. Also, I-10 westbound at Sunland Park, a big rig is blocking the left shoulder. And Global Reach southbound at Montana Avenue, an injury accident. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
The El Paso History Show with Andrew J. Polk is 10 a.m. this Saturday. An honorary consul of Spain, Martha Vera, talks about Spanish aid to the American Revolution. The El Paso History Show is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Cañutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest for gifts and decor, and by M1EP Management Corporation, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on News Radio 690 and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the Juan and only margarita from the Cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the big stories and impacts on the borderland every weekday at 4. Brought to you in part by Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon, official hair and beard sponsor of the show. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
M1EP.com, superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms. A lot of comments coming in there. And again, make sure you get them over there. If you've got questions, stuff that you might think would be good for Stephanie to look at, you can leave your comments over there. But of course, got that phone line open right now too. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of people chiming in there. Andrew's ignorant. If you're on a tacky-only diet, let me just suggest to you to not do that. But also Kathy Codry, Louis Pinado, Rich Rat, who I think said that was James Radcliffe. Anyway, Michael Perez, Flaco Jimenez, Maria Kallman, and more. Calvin Williams, Tim Collins, and a lot more tuning in, chiming in over there. Ted Kors, RJ as well. I mean, a lot of people. John Browson, but didn't already say that. Dropping those likes, let's put it that way. Ted Kors, Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Matt Olson, and Flaco Jimenez. We do appreciate that. One question I want to get to here, just because, you know what, I'll be honest, I had not thought about it. Calvin Williams asking, how do I buy certificates of obligation so I can get some of my money back? Technically, you can. I mean, it is a kind of municipal debt that is issued, so go to your favorite financial provider of bonds, essentially. you're into the bond market, there you go. Or not, go with whoever you trust on that. I'm not about to start recommending anything because I have not dipped the toe into the bond market, will freely admit. Something else coming up as of this hour is a release out from Governor Greg Abbott's office about more specifics on the expansion of border security operations in the wake of that continually developing situation. At least 53 as of this moment dead after an abandoned smuggled trailer was left in the San Antonio heat. We're going to keep talking about that, of course, here, but let's go back to those phone lines before we hit that top of the hour. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Yesterday, the January 6th committee had big news that at the rally prior to the insurrection, that Trump said that he wanted to turn off all the metal detectors because his supporters at the rally were not a threat to him. And then told these people armed with AR-15s and body armor and knives and other weapons to march peacefully up to the Capitol. First of all, Trump told them to peacefully march to the Capitol. Second, if there were people who were there with AR-15s and knives and body armor and other weapons, don't you think the Secret Service and Capitol Police would have detained these people and taken them away from the president? Are there any records of arrest at the rally?
Not that I'm aware of, unless you're asking that's a rhetorical question.
Third, if these people had been carrying these weapons during the rally, why were these people not arrested on the march prior to them reaching the Capitol building? Finally, that with 14,000 hours of video taken by the Capitol Police turned over to the January 6th committee, why is it that there has not been at least one video of somebody with an AR-15 or knife or some other weapon of that sort at the Capitol been released?
I know there's been some talk about the nature of armed or not. I mean, technically, someone who has something that could be considered an offensive weapon in their hands would be considered armed. But let's just say that the vast majority of what I've seen has been on the level of essentially physical weapons, either broken chairs or boards or things like that. Not what I'm truly thinking of when I'm thinking of when we talk about the terms of coup and armed and insurrection, all of those things. That's why I still, at least how we refer to it on this show, as the Capitol riot that happened on January 6th, and why, among other reasons, I have fully supported an investigation into it to get to the bottom of some of these questions, because I know that there are points to be made and political points specifically to be scored without a lot of this, frankly, on both sides, and it's been used both ways. Let's be perfectly honest here. But actually getting to it and asking for that investigation would answer a lot of questions, even if some may reject some of the conclusions. That's what I've been most interested in.
But the January 6th committee has implicated saying, I mean, they have actually said that these people had AR-15s. They had, I mean, how do you hide an AR-15 if you're walking to the Capitol? How do you hide? I mean, you know, there should be at least one video of somebody with a knife, not just these, like you said, these incidental, you know, chairs and stuff like that.
Sure.
To me, it just, I mean, 14,000 hours of video, and they don't have one video of somebody with an AR-15 or some other weapon other than chairs and stuff like that. This doesn't pass the smell test. Where was the Capitol Police and Secret Service if this was all happening? If this was all happening, then in order for this to take place, to the events to take place, the Secret Service and the Capitol Police had to be allowing this to all happen, which brings up other questions, or what truly happened on January 6th.
I mean, there are a lot of questions about January 6th and why, again, an investigation would be great, but let's make no mistake here. The January 6th committees are investigating, perhaps, but I would not refer to this as an investigation because they are, again, very transparently political purposes behind this. That's not even a question here. And I think at least part of the order of operations here, shall we say, about how these things are progressing, that there will be recommendations to investigation out of this, as opposed to, say, waiting for an investigation and then further going into hearings. Well, that tells you a lot, frankly, about what I think the usefulness of this is and what the ultimate outcomes of it will be. Getting a little bit far to field here, but tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Make sure we hit the top of the hour. So I appreciate the point in the call. We just got to get for those top of the hour breaks. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot more talk at the top of the hour, reviewing some of our major topics of the day, the, well, additional items for it coming in as of this hour, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. We're Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
All the crashes on I-10 westbound is slowing traffic this afternoon. I-10 westbound after Mesa, a recent crash is blocking the right lane. I-10 westbound at Red, an injury accident with police and medical on the scene. And I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Artcraft, it's about a 15-minute delay. Also, I-10 westbound at Sunland Park, a big rig is blocking the left shoulder, and Global Reach southbound at Montana Avenue, an injury accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Energy consumption is a primary contributor to a changing climate, producing around 27%
News
of
on the
greenhouse
hour
gases
and
in
a
the
half.
United States.
Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Chaos at airports is expected around the nation for this 4th of July holiday weekend. Significant staffing shortages between pilots and crew members, and now air traffic controllers, combined with high demand, is expected to make things even worse around the country. After more than 25,000 delays last weekend, there are nearly 500 cancellations and hundreds of delays and counting already today. The big rig used in this week's deadly smuggling attempt in Texas wasn't searched at several highway checkpoints, despite the fact that dozens of illegal immigrants were packed in the back. Governor Greg Abbott says state troopers are going to fix that security loophole.
They will begin targeting trucks like the one that was used where these people perished.
The death toll of the smuggling attempt is now up to 53, linked to heat exhaustion. The market is preparing to close out its worst first half of the year in decades as stocks finished mixed today. Investors still share fears as the economic slowdown appears to be getting worse and a recession remains a possibility. The NATO Secretary General says inviting Finland and Sweden to join the alliance is a big deal. At the NATO summit in Spain, Jens Stoltenberg praised the agreement between Turkey, Finland, and Sweden that allowed the Scandinavian countries to join. Ketanji Brown Jackson will be sworn in as a Supreme Court justice at noon Eastern Time tomorrow. Lisa Taylor reports.
That will coincide with the formal retirement of veteran Justice Stephen Breyer. He announced his intention to retire at the conclusion of the High Court's current term months ago. Jackson is a veteran federal judge who was confirmed by the Senate for the Supreme Court in April. She'll become the first Black woman to ever serve on the nation's highest court.
The last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient is dead at the age of 98. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. North Korea is accusing the United States, South Korea, and Japan of creating an Asian version of NATO with a sinister aim. The statement was announced on Wednesday, the same day South Korea and Japan are attending NATO's annual summit as observers for the first time. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
According to Pyongyang, this military cooperation is disregarding the primary security demand of Asia-Pacific countries. In a similar statement, the North's foreign ministry said the drills showed the hypocrisy of U.S. Office of Diplomatic Dialogue without preconditions. They are concerned it could be preparing to test the nuclear weapon for the first time since 2017. Washington has pushed Seoul and Tokyo to cooperate more in the face of threats from North Korea, as well as to counter the rising influence of China.
The FBI is opening a sex abuse investigation into the New Orleans Roman Catholic Church. It's looking specifically at whether priests took children across state lines to assault them, and it'll go back decades. Some priests could be prosecuted under a federal sex trafficking law that doesn't have a statute of limitations. The Republican and Democratic candidates in New York's governor race are locked in despite light voter turnout. Natalie Migliori reports.
According to the New York Board of Elections, just over 1.3 million people voted this primary. That's out of 8.5 million registered Democrats and Republicans. Early voter turnout was also low since nearly 180,000 registered voters across the state cast ballots over the 9-day period. The governor's race between Kathy Hochul and Lee Zeldin is expected to heat up and draw more voters by the general election in November.
Elmo is now vaccinated against COVID-19. The message posted to the beloved Sesame Street character's Twitter page confirmed the news. The announcement comes less than 2 weeks after the FDA cleared coronavirus vaccines for children down to 6 months old. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bonus. That's bonus. Enter it now.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com.
iHeartRadio, let's go! A weekend full of superstar performances, never seen before collaborations, and once-in-a-lifetime moments you'll have to see to believe.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has your workspace covered with furniture and organizational items curated by Staples Work From Home Style Squad. Now get 25% off of storage and filing products, chair mats, decor, and lighting with the purchase of a desk or office chair. In-store only. Offer N72. Staples, the working and learning store.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Are you ready for summer? Wherever summer takes you, make sure you take your favorite radio station with you on your adventures with the free iHeartRadio app. That's right. No matter how far from home you travel, this station, the music you love, and the best podcasts in the world will be right there with you in your pocket.
Summer soundtrack.
Sunscreen, flip-flops, and the free iHeart app. Must-haves for any summer checklist. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love this summer.
I'm Roger Waters, and this is not a drill.
This is the real deal. Pink Floyd's Roger Waters' This Is Not a Drill North American Tour rolls across the U.S.
How would you like to join me on tour?
Here's your chance to win a VIP trip for two to Las Vegas to see Roger Waters live in concert, first-class airfare, front row tickets, and more from AEG.
Wow.
Text the nationwide keyword Roger to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's Roger to 200-200.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Energy consumption is a primary contributor to a changing climate, producing around 27% of greenhouse gases in the United States. Save money and energy at home by turning off your computer completely before you go to bed. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, you're going to be able to find us, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, on most of those platforms, and chime in. A lot of people doing so already and leaving their comments across, well, all of them. Twitter's more of a DM thing, so don't begrudge you for not leaving a message there because it's more of a direct message. But still, if you're wanting to make sure you get your 2 cents in, you can do it that way, or get over on the phone line, full up at the moment. But if you want to squeeze in at a later point, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot to talk about here today. One thing I want to get before we hit back to those phone lines is, again, more information out during our first hour of the program here from Governor Greg Abbott's office on expanding border security operations, specifically working on Operation Lone Star and agency partners therein. Some of the specific things, talking a lot about what has gone on previously, but what really, I mean, there's a lot of questions that are going around what has been at least initially announced out of Governor Greg Abbott's increasing, well, concern after the incident that left at least 53 dead after a smuggling truck was abandoned in the heat of the San Antonio summer here. And I wasn't meaning to cast any shade on RJ earlier during the first hour. I had somehow, in all the reporting and stuff we're doing on this, missed the detail that the smugglers had sprinkled meat tenderizer on those already deceased in the truck as they then fled in order to cover up the smell. Like, yeah, he said that's all you need to know. And I have a lot of words that I cannot say on the radio right now that come to mind with me, so basically some of the major things that Governor Greg Abbott is announcing: expansion of the state's border security operations by creating Texas Department of Public Safety strike teams, establishing new vehicle inspection checkpoints targeting semi-trucks, and the deployment of additional resources from the Texas Military Department to mitigate the growing border crisis that is then, well, pinned on President Biden, according to the release here. So there'll be more on that, I'm sure. So a lot of questions are in mind, because what are the differences going to be between this and the previous enhanced security screenings that were done? Those will be some of the critical questions coming up here. And Rich, yeah, I'll agree with you. That is incredibly disgusting and unconscionable. And again, I'm not going to be able to talk about that much because I'm pretty quickly getting into words that I definitely can't say on the radio. So let's get back to those phone calls right now. Again, that number to call if you want to squeeze in is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Talk about political lies and lying politicians. How about this one? Texas Governor Goofball Greg Abbott said Tuesday that he intends to eliminate rape in Texas. Now, in 2020, Texas had the highest number of forcible rapes in the United States, with 13,500 reported rapes. Eliminating rape is as fanciful as Mexico paying for the wall and Trump making America great again. Now, in 2019, there were 14,600 rapes in Texas, according to the state's Department of Public Safety. But get this, in Governor Abbott's Law and Order, Texas, only 2,200 people were arrested for rape that same year. Now, if eliminating rape was possible to do, why hasn't Governor Goofball Greg done it already in the state that has the most rapes and rapists? And how about eliminating mass shootings in Texas while he's at it? And do that by making it easier for nuts to buy guns and run around town armed to the teeth. Governor Goofball Greg Abbott is just another lying politician. And Andrew, like your father and me, we are students of history. And while Trump and his enablers and apologists are trying to rewrite his one term as something other than the unmitigated disaster that it was, analyses conducted by historians, political scientists, and presidential scholars have made one thing abundantly clear. Donald Trump was one of America's worst presidents. In every survey, Trump made the list of the 10 worst presidents. In no survey was he ever ranked more than third from the bottom. Trump's a loser, and you can see it, and it's because those people who still follow him, they're part of a cult. Republicans became a movement of a Trump bowel movement at that, powered by agreement and rage, motivated by dismantling the government, the disenfranchisement of people of color, and the continued protection and promotion of white patriarchal plutocrats who own these purchased right-wing politicians.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot to break down there, but particularly in the concept that people who voted for Donald Trump are in a cult, I will say I have my issues with just about any politician here, but again, I have the most issue at this exact moment with the idea of as we've previously referenced, such a broad brush being used to paint everyone who may have decided that they prefer one political candidate over another. I don't think you would hold anyone to the same standard if they were saying why they voted for Joe Biden. In fact, most of the people I know who voted for him are not saying that, oh no, I love everything he's done, everything possible, and he can do no wrong. That's not exactly the standard that they consider him. It was essentially a lesser of two evils kind of reasoning even now. And to say that everyone who does that, like, yeah, there are obviously fanatical people out there. We've got enough people in this country that even if a percent of a percent is a sizable group of people. So if that's what we're talking about, sure, yeah. But to then paint everyone else as being that part of a percent of a percent or probably less is a mistake and kind of convenient, really, when you get down to it. The idea that, well, I don't actually have to engage with any of these ideas of people I disagree with. We can just say they're crazy and need to be removed from public life, essentially, is kind of what we're getting at here. Let's get down to brass tacks of what you're suggesting here, that none of these people deserve, should be voting, etc. And that runs just flat that face first into my principles and positions on the area, that we should discuss things and not just say, no, that's crazy, it can't be discussed here. Like, sure, there are some things that are out of bounds, but also can be justifiably said so as, no, that is one of the less intelligent, shall we say, ideas we've come across. We can dispense with those. And sure, there's an argument to be made that dispensing with unintelligent ideas, again, there's another phrase I want to use there that I can't on the radio, is often an order of magnitude more intensive in terms of effort than it is to spout off such ridiculous things. And sure, there's an effort of that, and I have my levels for it, but this is also reaching it in its own way to say that no, everyone that ever considered the president is more viable, the former president, than any other, is part of a cult and is a loony and then should be locked up. Like, seriously, that's what we're getting at here. If we can't debate the idea, saying, okay, let's take this idea at its face value. I had significant issues with the former president's immigration policy, but the ability to discuss it is where I think we'll find then a potential solution. Otherwise, well, look at what we got in government right now. We've got it if there's not firm control by one party of everything. And I practically mean everything at this day and age, because you can bet that again, it's already come up in conversation about the Supreme Court. Nothing gets done. Literally not how our system was designed here. So you're, of course, entitled to your opinion on here, even though don't be putting words in my mouth saying that history has already proven anything about something that we're not even out of the same decade it happened in, my dude. And that's how long I do recall it took for, at the very least, the example I think of, 9/11 to show up in my history textbooks when I was still in, secondary education. It's not exactly settled. And to say that, well, everyone reasonable thinks this way and everyone unreasonable doesn't, you're getting real close to basket of deplorables reasoning here, my dude. And I don't think that has worked out for any kind of rhetorical, political, really any purpose, if that's really what you're going for here. All right, let's take at least one more call before we hit this next. I appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth, but find myself more disagreeing more than usual on this point. Let's get to one more call here. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, first of all, I want to thank the Democrats for making stupid easy. But I wanted to let you know that I've attended rallies and I've been a volunteer at rallies, presidential rallies, and I can tell you that you go through about 2 or 3 checks before you even get into the rally, because they check you out pretty well. First of all, you have volunteers that'll check you out. Then you have the local police that'll check you. That'll have a checkpoint, and then you have the Secret Service that has a checkpoint, and then you go through a metal detector. So it's pretty hard to get a weapon in there. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was on this hospital thing. Right now, everybody is hurting post-COVID. Everybody is hurting. The medical industry advocated for closing the economy. And what happened when you close the economy, you're not getting revenues, tax revenues. So, and you're not getting the medical treatment that needs to go, that provides you revenues also. You're not providing those medical treatments like surgeries and other things. But one of the things that's happening is that the hospital is hurting now for money because, they went like 2 years without revenues, except other than the government revenues that they were being provided because of COVID. But now they're hurting, and we are all hurting. We're hurting too, with high inflation, with high gas prices, everything is costing more. So everybody's hurting. So now the hospital wants us to go to the poorhouse to help them out to recover. What about us recovering? Now, we had situations where people were saying, don't even go to the hospital because you're going to die. If you have COVID, don't go to the hospital. You're going to die. And we all know people that died of COVID in a hospital. And we know people that didn't die because they didn't go to the hospital. So, I mean, right now, the natural health solutions are making a lot of money because everybody's trying to get medical attention, or not medical attention, but they're trying to solve their health problems or health issues through natural means. Now, if the hospital needs money, they need money because you know why? Because they're getting ready for the migrants that are coming, and they know that they treat migrants, and every migrant that comes through the crosses the bridge is going to need some type of medical treatment. And once they treat them, they get paid by the federal government for every migrant that they treat. So they're looking at those profits, and that's why they want to expand. They're not looking out for us. They're not looking out for us. They're looking at making profits through the migrants. Everything goes back to the migrants. That's it for me.
Okay, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Again, a lot more. We ran out of time to get into it with Estefania today just because we got in depth so many other things, but she has done some very interesting things on the uncompensated care levels previously, particularly for UMC. So again, kfoxtv.com/KFox Investigates. Well, just click on the KFox 14 Investigates tab, because that might not be the totally exact URL. It's definitely kfoxtv.com. Just then search on the page for the KFox 14 Investigates tab, and you'll find a little bit more about, well, what has been done even previous to this point, this expansion discussion on what the situation is for UMC. Here's a hint, it was complicated at best to begin with here. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will absolutely be getting to more of the calls, more of the comments, more of everything on the line here. If you're wanting to call in, that number to do so again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. More comments, all of that coming up after this break with more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere. Sometimes you just need to get away from your day for a bit. Do something for yourself. Take care of yourself. Always recommend that. But do something that helps you look good, feel good, all those things. And whenever, particularly with the heavy issues we deal with, I feel the need to. I definitely remember that it's time to make my next appointment with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa, because you want to talk about a practically literal oasis in this complicated city of both issues, people, things that we discuss here, having a place to go. Just get your hair and beard expertly groomed, as well as getting a nice, refreshing beverage of your choice. It's definitely red beer season, both with their specialty and, well, for me, I'm definitely going to be taking them up on that as well. So remember to make your next appointment with Gentleman's Republic so you can truly be treated like a king for a day by calling 915-532-3000. That's 915-532-3000. Or find them online at gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTSRepublic.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
All lanes are back open on the I-10 westbound from that earlier crash after Mesa on I-10 westbound. Also an injury accident still being worked on I-10 westbound at Red. Stop and go traffic from Wrestler all the way up to Artcraft with 11-minute delays. Border Highway after Midway, watch for multiple vehicles off to the right. And Global Reach southbound at Montana, an injury accident there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
You know when you see a great deal on the phone and then you find out it's not for you? Not at Verizon.
They just gave us all a new iPhone 13.
So we both got the same great deal.
Yep.
Get iPhone 13 on us with select trade-in and 5G unlimited plans for every customer, current, new, everyone, to show the love. Only from Verizon. $799.99, 128 gigabytes only, device payment purchase with new or upgrade smartphone line required. Less up to $800 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in conditions apply.
Want to kill bugs like the pros do? Now you can with Maggie's Farm. Created by pest control professionals, Maggie's Farm plant and mineral-based products provide amazingly effective insect control. Ants, roaches, spiders, flies, mosquitoes, you name it, we kill it. All of our plant-based products are safe to use around children and pets and won't leave behind a messy, oily residue like some other products. Maggie's Farm. Lethal to bugs. Easy on the planet. Look for Maggie's Farm at your favorite retail store or at maggiesfarmproducts.com.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk, of course, talking about a lot of issues, a lot of things going on, and taking a lot of comments on it. Social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are the ways that you can do this here. And some commentary about some of our commentators, shall we say. I mean, we do have some open lines here. Not quite like Open Line Friday, but people can call in, air their 2 cents. Focus more on the, shall we say, more off the wall on Fridays here. But yeah, if you're going to do something that's similar every day, let's just say you're going to have a bad time in any case here. But we got more calls in the line. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, because the brilliant thing about the way we structured this, okay, maybe I'm tooting my own horn here, but you can respond to other issues. So that's one of the very important reasons we do it the way that we do. So don't worry about that. In any case, full up at the moment, but you can squeeze in here in just a bit. A lot of comments coming in. Ion Graham, Kathy Codry, Ted Kors, Michael Perez, RJ, and more. That's just some of the recent ones. And also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Ted Kors, Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Matt Olson, and Flaco Jimenez. Tell you what, it doesn't even have to be a true like you are agreeing with the content, but rather you appreciate the fact that we have a discussion here. That's what I take the likes or reacts or whatever they are to mean here for our area, and it helps with those algorithmic things. Of course, the way Facebook deals with things, which is always changing, so that's why we're also on all those platforms. So let's go back to those phone lines here right now. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Hmm?
I thought Raul would be calling in today to update us on the congressional hearing testimony that Cassidy Hutchinson did, but he didn't, so I'll update the listening audience. Apparently, the story that she concocted never happened. The 2 Secret Service agents in the car said it did not happen, and they're willing to testify in front of the committee under oath. Secondly, I guess she presented some sort of a note that she said she wrote. Well, the attorney who wrote the note is actually calling her a liar. He said, that is my note. She did not write it. So I just thought Raul was going to update us on that, but he didn't, so I did that for him. And
Fair
he
enough.
uses such a broad brush to paint President Trump. When he calls in with a broad brush, he should give us some specifics. And this is how I do it when I call in and give President Trump credit for something. And this, the Wall Street Journal was reporting on Sunday that there were secret meetings between the United States and Israel and some specific Arab nations. And they gave credit in the article to President Trump's presidency because of the Abrams Accord. They said, had it not been for that accord that the Trump administration secured, the meetings would not have been possible. But the reasons for the meetings that they gave in the article was, number one, the U.S. is turning its focus to China and Russia and not so much on the Middle East. And number two, the Middle East is threatened by Iran, threatening the instability by use of their ballistic and cruise missiles and their arsenals of drones. So the purpose of the meeting was to get together and see how they're going to counter Iran and protect themselves. So here we have Biden doing something against Iran. On the other hand, you have Biden with Russia's help as our spokesperson in talks to renegotiate the nuclear agreement that Obama Biden entered into and President Trump took us out of. So that's, I mean, look, in one instance, he's against Iran. The next instance, he wants to enter an agreement with Iran, which takes us to Ukraine. And Iran, remember, tells us death to America. They don't even want to sit in the same room that we do, and that's why we need Russia there in the negotiations. But regarding Ukraine, President Biden has told the world Russia must not win this war. Yet he's asking for Russia's help in the negotiations with Iran. How convoluted is this? So this brings me to two statements. One made by Obama. Anything you give to Biden to do, you can be sure that he will be a failure. You know what he said, but I'll say that he will be a failure at it. And then we have former Defense Secretary Bob Gates. What did he say? Every foreign policy decision that Biden has made has been wrong. So when Raul calls in, if he has specifics, and these are facts, I'm not making this up, these are facts, these are articles, these are people talking about Biden, that's what he needs to do. Convince, persuade. Don't yell at us and tell us how horrible President Trump was. Because if he can name from Afghanistan to the abandoned Americans, to Ukraine, to the White House, to the border, to the Fed, to the labor participation rate, inflation, the DOJ politicizing their department, not checking Hunter, the FBI raiding residences, looking for Biden's daughter's diary. I mean, these are all facts. This is everything that the Biden administration has failed. Immigration, just now it's 53 illegal immigrants that have just died right at the feet of Biden. He's ruining our country. I don't know if everybody heard, North Carolina is opening up this academy for Honduran boys. They're going to hire 800 personnel to help with the care, maintenance, education, sports, whatever, for these Honduran boys. That's what this administration is doing. Imagine the cost of that facility and 800 employees. Why don't they do that? Why don't they open a facility in each underserved community for parents who don't have the money or the knowledge to teach their children at home or at school, who can't help them with their math, who can't help them with their reading, who can't help them with their science, who don't have recreational yards? Why don't they do that in our communities with our money, our tax dollars, and close up the border, find out what's going on in the United States, find these people, and then consider more immigration? But until that time, the Biden administration is ruining the communities, ruining our community, and depriving our poverty-stricken community, the low class. They're the ones that are hurting the most from what this Biden administration is. That's what Raul should tell me. How is it we're benefiting from that? How are we benefiting with what happened in Afghanistan? How are we benefiting with what's happening in Ukraine? How are we benefiting when 21 employees at the White House are leaving or have left because they already know the tsunami's coming, the work environment is horrible, and the president's ratings are low?
I mean, there's a lot of expectations that I have and a lot of others have when it comes to this upcoming midterm election that fully expect that we're going to see, well, okay, there may have been a wrench or two thrown into the clear progression that would have existed previously, but I guess that's also to be expected given that, well, things are going to change and the, October, September, August, June, July surprises can definitely be happening, and I have no doubt that that will continue on. Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that idea of training for children or parenting advice, in general, that kind of thing. There are programs like that that do exist in our community that may or may not get government assistance, but are largely, well, private run and privately focused charitable efforts kind of things, because, yeah, there's definitely need for that in our community, among other things here. So interesting that you mentioned that there. Certainly understand your passion for a lot of these issues and the concern about it. I have similar levels, even if maybe taken in a slightly different way, because yeah, without just on the immigration issue, without much more changing on it, with the essentially status quo being maintained, I don't think we're going to be served very well by it. And again, this incident this week just puts that in stark focus. And to my further understanding on that, 3 individuals are in custody on it after abandoning that truck. At least one of them may have been the truck driver who may have had to try to hide with the people that he was letting die. So that just going to continue on following that. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot to be concerned about here, but tell you what, I appreciate the point in the call. We got to take that next break here already to get back on track with some of these clock issues. So do appreciate it. We'll talk more about this and a whole lot more coming up after this break here on Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. There are now 51 migrants confirmed dead after being abandoned in a tractor trailer with no air conditioning in San Antonio. Among the dead are 39 men and 12 women. Some are under 18 years of age, but university health officials say they are unable to identify all of the victims just yet. The driver of this truck and 2 others are now in custody. And closer to home, the El Paso FBI reports an increase in the number of stash houses popping up across the borderland. The agency says as migrants pay to be smuggled into the United States, it's also seen a growing number of kidnap for ransom cases. El Paso Special Agent Jeff Downey says El Paso is seeing a significant change in human smuggling trends. Previously, migrants would pay a one-time fee to enter the country, and now Downey says migrants are being held against their will as smugglers try to get some more money from family members in the U.S. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got a major crash on Joe Battle Boulevard, northbound at Montwood, that has closed all the main lanes there except for the exit ramp. You could exit earlier at Vista del Sol to avoid slowing and save time. I-10 westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident slowing traffic. The 10 westbound is still slow, but it's looking better. Accidents cleared at Mesa Street and I-10 westbound at Red. Still about 5-minute delays there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the 4-1 Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures once again remaining below normal, settling in those lower 90s. We'll see a slight warm up over the next few days, but those temperatures are going to stay below normal well into next week, only in those mid 90s. Essentially every day, including today, we'll have that low threat for a few afternoon thunderstorms. So while you're outside enjoying those cooler temperatures, make sure you're staying weather aware. Visit our website for a full look at your forecast.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
New on Curiosity Street.
This is very different. Dinosaurs living in sub-freezing temperatures.
A groundbreaking expedition reveals Antarctica's vibrant prehistoric past on dinosaurs of the frozen continent. And as Napoleon's enemies surged, one failed negotiation with Austria led to his eventual downfall. Relive the diplomatic showdown that turned the tide on Napoleon, the beginning of the end. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
With a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Spending time outdoors can improve overall health and wellness. Celebrate Earth Day and take advantage of nature's health benefits by visiting a local park. Recreate responsibly to protect yourself and others, and to make the outdoors safe and welcoming for people of all identities and abilities. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing. So a lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we've got that phone line up right now, full up back again. But if you want to squeeze in, number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in as well, including one right now. Kathy Coder saying, sounds like the cartels are making big bucks. Yeah, that's why they do it. They're definitely not charity cases. But Barbara Carrasco mentioning about Horror today, the last recipient of the Medal of Honor, World War II veteran, died. God bless him for his service and his health that allowed him to travel throughout the U.S. to speak about World War II. Actually, interesting situation, not directly related to that one here, but tangentially anyway. We do have a new monument that has been going to be coming up, has actually been announced that the Company Treacherous Crossing Memorial is going to be unveiled in downtown El Paso coming up this week, tomorrow actually, June 30th, so right before the July 4th holiday, though there are some questions about the actual inscriptions on it. El Paso Matters, an interesting writing on that. But of course, we've had that some previous discussions on the El Paso History Radio Show about the history of that incident. If you want to go back and see some of those previous episodes, you can always find them over on the El Paso History Radio Show Facebook page here. But let's go back to some of those phone lines right now. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
Yes, reference to this tragedy in San Antonio. I understand that this truck was not inspected.
That's part of the questions coming out here. What exactly did it make it through? Did it go through inspections? Did it not? And also the registration status of having been a cloned registration, essentially mimicking the details and information of a different truck. There's a lot of detail that we are missing here at this moment.
Yes, well, it's a lot of speculation, yes. And
That's
as
true.
information comes through, then one can make a final conclusion. But however, I would like to ask people out there, how can Border Patrol and other law enforcement agencies be expected to do their job? Like Border Patrol, for one, how are they expected to do their job when they are tasked with processing illegal immigrants?
I mean, that has been one of the major questions that has been brought up about the strain on resources just writ large is an issue. But in the specific incident, taking people away from the line, essentially. And that was one of the points brought up by Governor Greg Abbott about, including in the sound bites at the top of the hour news breaks, if you've been catching those, about having to divert resources to increase on border security issues. I don't think anyone out there would be under the illusion that, there's totally enough resources for border security. We don't need to add any more on that. I'd like to meet that person and then have some very specific words for them.
Yes. Now, I must respond to Comrade Raul. Yesterday, he blamed capitalism for this tragedy that occurred, as I recall.
Yeah, I guess that was my point that was made there, which capitalism and or exploitation, because we're not talking about what was a well-regulated and functioning economy here at this point. Yeah, blaming it on the economic system. I mean, there's the fact that smuggling happens within all economic systems, to my understanding. If someone has created a utopian system out there and is just not telling anyone about it, they need to let us know.
Granted. Well, the point I wanted to make is Raul, who has claimed on the radio, and he's claimed it on the radio, I will repeat, to be an entrepreneur and a financial advisor. He trashes capitalism a lot, but yet he's benefited a lot from capitalism.
Yeah, I think he's made a finer point about the idea of between being essentially a servant of the system or a capitalist, as the definition of those holding capital. But again, I don't think that totally works here. Just got to say.
Well, true, in some point. Now, as for Governor Abbott's push to prevent rape, well, the idea is to reinforce and assist local law enforcement agencies in preventing it, enforcement, and prosecutors in getting convictions. I will say this, and this is from the DPS from June 2011 to June 2021. There were 344,000 criminal aliens booked into local jails. Out of those 344,000 during that 10-year period, there were 15,408 sexual offenses committed by these individuals.
Yeah, that's significant in its own right. Another point that comes to mind here, particularly on the division of resources in this case, is the stat about latest finding is from 2021, though I'm sure it's probably still in a similar, order of magnitude, 100,000 untested rape kits across the country. Clearly, there is also a resource problem here.
Yes. Well, I will say this. Governor Abbott, he has been pushing and helping law enforcement. Yes. And like I said, 2019, he signed what I call the anti-groping law, which makes it a offense to inappropriately touch a female or other person in their private parts. Class A misdemeanor, folks.
Yeah, it's a bad idea in general, and I don't find myself much in opposition to the idea of making it more painful than it already should be.
Okay. Well, anyway, Andrew, I digress, and I turn the mic over to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one.
Take care.
All right, let's get to a couple more calls here. Some comments coming in. If you want to see the full comments, they're up on the social media platforms here. We got some activity primarily over on Facebook, also on YouTube if you want to wade in over there in case I'm missing any. Calvin Williams mentioning a person who should deserve the Medal of Honor here. And and Kevin will ask him, yes, you did miss that call indeed. But let's go back to those phone lines. We do have Frankie and Messia here with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, right out of the box. I heard Bewildered Barber go on about this business that she picks out of everything that Cassidy girl said. And what does she focus on? Some iffy nonsense about the steering wheel business of the clavicle clutching. Oh, yeah, out of everything else, you got to focus on that, Barbara? Well, you get that Secret Service guy in there under oath, and we'll see where this all falls out. Now, my main point. I've been doing some research or studying up on you Texans out there with your tax structure. And all you got is a two-leg stool missing one of the three, okay? All you got is property tax and sales stuff. And you got all these bills coming, and you got all this other stuff going on, inflation, this, that, whatever was going on here. And you think that you're going to get a break when this is all said and done? No, you're not. You are going to get slammed and going to be charged, overcharged, triple charged, quadruple charged. So you better learn to live with it until you guys figure out how to get in the same program with the rest of the world. The same goes with your ergon electrical system. You got to do it all your own way instead of trying to figure out the way the rest of the normal world works. That's what I want to say.
I make no claim to the ergot system, but yeah, Texas has, I want to say it was a finer point that came out of the previous legislative session and not even out of the extended ones. I know it's having probably a series of them, really, of strengthening the ability for Texas to not have removed the income, well, essentially that there could not be an income tax. That is a very fine point, and one that would take quite the political upheaval within Texas state politics to see any room for that to even possibly happen. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that point. But people being very upset about the property taxes, yeah, I mean, locally, sure, and even then some of the statewide things, I don't see that going away. I guess the way it has been moving to a certain extent within the Texas legislature is moving more towards those what you refer to as sales taxes, or essentially use taxes, that when you do something, if there is a charge for it, that is where the cost is. So essentially an idea of moving the burden more onto state-wise anyway, onto those that are doing the things that cost them the tax money. That's really one of the more major ways that it's been happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues within this next legislative session.
Well, I just think, under the circumstances, the way the situation is structured right now with you guys in Texas, not necessarily El Paso. I think a lot of El Pasoans are more normal than the rest of the state. But until you fix this, you are going to get so stuck. You're going to be paying through the wazoo, and you need to get that fixed. That's what I want to say.
Fair enough there. Well, thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one.
All right, bye.
I mean, yeah, I think the property tax has never exactly been an uncontroversial point. Maybe not controversial, but contended. Definitely a lot of contention over the issue. It's not been within last decade. Let's call it that just for safety's sake. Probably maybe within, but that there's been someone who's truly campaigned seriously on the idea of lowering taxes, or at least effectuating it anyway. It's only been the advent of the pandemic that has really seen that calculus change somewhat. So that's why we'll definitely keep talking about the UMC issues. I have an idea in mind once we get through all these budget seasons and everything, going into, okay, what are actually some of the changes, trying to give you the whole tax dollar idea, because we often talk about it piecemeal as this place costs this much, this place costs you this much, but giving you the whole picture, that's one thing I really want to be looking more at once we get a little bit more clarity on it ourselves here. Let's get at least one more call on the line before we hit that last break of the hour and tell you what we got coming up for you next on the show. We do have Marco over in Central with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
So I'd like you to investigate this real quick. So my heart goes out to all the people that died in that trailer.
Absolutely.
It was really a tragedy. But I think, so you don't get this from the national media, but you definitely get this from the local media, especially like around the Dallas, Fort Worth area, San Antonio area. So the amount of people that die weekly in trucks is insane. So, I mean, you get these people that are sequestrado, I guess, like they pay a certain amount of money to be brought across the border. And then as soon as they get over here, they're told to give up their cell phones, their PIN numbers. And then what they do is they'll call those family members, the narcos they'll call the family members, and then they'll flex them for extra money. And if they don't pay, well, then they just start murdering them. So they'll leave them just out there like they found this truck. But that's not the only truck that's been found. There's lots of these trucks that have been found all over Texas. So I want to know if you can figure that out. I've been reading reports on it. I don't want to come to conclusions on it. But I mean, if it is true, then it's a bigger problem than just these poor people that passed away. Obviously, these narcos are bringing them. What I'm figuring is they bring them across the border. Once they're here, they get to a certain state. They have to go to a certain area. They probably have their family members that are being, kind of harassed by the same narcos in those same communities. And I mean, let's be honest. What we're doing here, you and me, this in Mexico would get us assassinated immediately, because we're spilling the beans on the way they do things. And the saddest thing is we're two individuals speaking about this on the radio, and the feds wouldn't know way more than that. They know exactly what's going on, and they allow it to happen, which is really a tragedy. The other thing I want to talk to you about is something that just makes me giddy. And this is for Raul. So from my understanding, on July 4th, my favorite president, Orange Man Rad, is going to announce he's going to be running for president. And at that point, I want to see what the federal government's going to do. Because other than being good little Nazis and going and arresting your political enemy because you don't agree with him, this man has every right to go out and run for president unimpeded. Let's see how unimpeded they are when the Democrats have to run against him again. I wouldn't put it past the Democrats, or let's just say nefarious government agencies, maybe to start shutting down electricity across the United States to try and influence things. I mean, obviously that never would happen, so I just assume things. You know, they shut an economy down over a virus. That would never happen. So, you know, that's just hyperbole, right? Thanks a lot, Andrew.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. I mean, okay, just on the first point you're making about the situation and trucks. Kathy Codry bringing up, a U-Haul truck found in Northeast in March 2022. Thankfully, they survived. Different part of the year, absolutely. But also just the stark idea of being able to even talk about this, and why I get maybe more than a little bit salty when someone says, no, you're not allowed to talk about that, because people are literally dying in Mexico for even talking about this. In fact, today, the 12th journalist of the year was murdered in Mexico. Antonio de la Cruz, 47, reporter for the local newspaper Expreso in Ciudad Victoria, the capital city of Tamaulipas. So I take that beyond deadly seriously. And someone saying that, why I just think that we need to talk more about these things, because not doing it, I mean, there are literally, that we had in some of the papers much closer to home across the border saying, tell us what you want us to print because we don't know what won't get us killed. So the fact that we can talk about these things is a fundamentally important freedom for me, and one I will never stop doing as long as I have this voice, this chair, this ability to do so. But also, to your second point there, I'm not going to necessarily hold my breath that there will or won't be an announcement coming up next week, if only because I think that there may be some powers that be even within the party itself of the Republican side of things wanting to wait probably until the midterm and focus on the fundraising efforts. But I've also been proven wrong on these things in the past there. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. We got to take that last break of the hour here. Coming out of this, tell you what we got coming up for you on the show and close it out. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso briefly after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Montwood, all lanes are closed except for the exit ramp there due to a crash. Exit earlier at Vista del Sol to save some time. I-10 westbound at Airway, an accident's blocking the left lane. An injury accident, I-10 westbound at Red from earlier is cleared. And an injury accident, both directions, Global Reach at Montana Avenue, slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Here's to the great American settlers. The millions of you who settled for unsatisfying jobs because they pay the bills. Of course, there is something else you could do if you got something to say. Start a podcast with Spreaker from iHeart and unleash your creative freedom. Maybe even earn enough money to one day tell your old boss, hey, I'm no settler, I'm an explorer. Spreaker.com, Spreaker. Hustle on over today.
If you work remote, Staples has you covered.
A mid-mod desk chair to rejuvenate my ho-hum workspace.
Staples has you covered. A place to put my papers so I can be more productive.
A storage cabinet that I can roll out of the way on weekends.
Staples has you covered with remote workspace solutions. And now get 25% off storage and filing products, chair mats, decor, and lighting with the purchase of an office chair or desk. Explore solutions for your remote workspace at Staples, the working and learning store. N72, in-store only.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh. Because
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming up tomorrow for you on the program, going to be talking about some of those legal questions that have come up, both along the lines of why threatening a judge is a specifically bad idea, or doxing him, or doxing anyone for that matter, and also why some of those quote-unquote gas hacks you may have seen about driving off to the pump, not that it seemed like a great idea to begin with, but why specifically it's a really bad idea. So getting into some of that and a whole lot more with Justin B. Underwood, with Wyatt Underwood, trial lawyer. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, ever so just dawning over the horizon here, we got Free For All Friday coming for you on the end of the week. So a whole lot more we'll be getting to here. So thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in today's show. Really, the conversation gives me life and makes this worthwhile in my mind, because us talking about things, no one else is going to do it the way that we do. So thank you all for having tuned in. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Montwood, all lanes are closed except for the exit ramp there due to a crash. Exit earlier at Vista del Sol to save some time. I-10 westbound at Airway, an accident's blocking the left lane. An injury accident I-10 westbound at Red from earlier is cleared. And an injury accident both directions Global Reach at Montana Avenue slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. People are bracing for a chaotic 4th of July travel weekend. Significant staffing shortages between pilots and crew members and now air traffic controllers, combined with high demand, is expected to make things even worse around the country. Experts are telling travelers to book nonstop flights, insure their tickets, pack light, and sign up for alerts directly through the airline services. Attorney Gloria Allred says survivors are relieved R. Kelly will be put away for 30 years.
He will not be able to continue to sexually victimize any other underage girls.
Prosecutors said Kelly used his fame and money to prey upon children and young women for his own sexual gratification. A man is guilty of carrying out an attack that killed more than 100 in Paris back in 2015. A trial led to the conviction of Salah Abdalsam on terrorism and murder charges. He's believed to be the only surviving person of the group that was responsible for the attack. 4 of 5 former Navy officers charged with accepting bribes from the foreign defense contractor known as Fat Leonard have been convicted. Jack Cronin has more.
The former officer